Welcome, 8th grade. Here we're talking about writing equations and expressions. So we're getting ready to just talk about solving a lot of equations, but first we need to know how to write them and where we get them from. So I need you to put your name at the top left, your date at the top right, and put a title on this bad boy, and here we go. Some notes to take down are that expressions are mathematical clauses, so I'm going to try and be Mr. Barrett right now and talk about the fact that a clause is an incomplete thought. So it cannot stand on its own as a sentence. It's not complete, so it just expresses part of an idea. So an expression is the same way. You don't have a final answer. You're just talking about combining some numbers, but you don't know what it's going to be equal to. Some numbers are variables. You don't know what it's going to be equal to, though. Equations are mathematical statements or sentences, and they do have an equal sign. So it's a complete thought. If I say 5 plus 6 is 11, that's a complete idea. But if I say 5 plus 6, that's a clause, that's an expression because it's not complete. I didn't finish it off. So the key words to know if you have an equation is if you see the word equals or if you see the word is, like her score after getting 5 questions right is 36 points. So if you can, if you're trying to figure out the number of points each question is worth, then or how much each question is worth, then you would have to use an equal sign. You could have an equation there to solve because we had the word is. Next, we have some need-to-know vocab. So to be able to write equations, you need to know some basic vocab, which we've talked about before. Sum is the answer to an addition problem. Difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. Product is the answer to a multiplication problem. And quotient is the answer to a division problem. So you're going to need to know those four and some other like factors and squared and cubed and exponents. You'll have to know some of those too. But those are some need-to-know vocab, and you guys should be familiar with that. But some extra notes about writing equations. If they're asking you to be able to put a word sentence and turn it into a mathematical expression or equation, you need to know that if they say the quantity of, they want you to do that operation first. And we know that if they want us to do an operation first, we have to put it in grouping symbols. And same with commas. They want you to pause because they want you to figure out that value first. So you should be using parentheses for the operations when you hear or when you read the quantity of or when you see commas used. The final note is to beware the phrase less than. So if I say, what is 10 less than 30? Most of you could probably tell me right away that's 20. But if you were to write it out, a lot of people, if they say, see the words 10 less than 30, they're used to reading from left to right, and so what they'll actually write is 10 minus 30. And that is not the same thing. That equals negative 20, and that is not correct. So we need to know that this is not what it equals. So beware the phrase less than. It can be pretty tricky, and I don't want you guys to get caught up. So let's go to some examples and see what they're going to ask us to do and what we should be able to do with this sort of information. So the first says, write an expression or an equation for the phrase, twice the quantity of 5 plus a number is 13. So some things to pick out right away, and hopefully you see this, is the fact that we have the word is, so we know that we're actually going to have an equation in this case. And also they use the word the quantity of. So we know that we're going to need some parentheses. But the easiest part to probably write is 13. They're telling us something is 13. Something is equal to 13. So we have that right side done. We've already got that part. But what is equal to 13? Twice, or 2 times, not just 5 plus a number, 5 plus a variable. We'll use the variable x because a lot of people like it. We're not just going to do 2 times 5. We're going to do 2 times the quantity of 5 plus a number. They want us to figure out what's the quantity of 5 plus a number. We're going to figure this out first and then multiply it by 2. So hopefully that kind of illustrates the fact that when they say the quantity of, we need to use parentheses to make sure that we're not going to multiply just the 5 following the order of operations. We need to find that sum first and then multiply. Let's look at number 2. It says write an expression or equation for the quantity of 3 less than the sum of 4 and 2 squared. So some things to figure out here is that we probably have an expression because I didn't hear equals and I didn't hear is. And we also have this comma, which means that's the last thing we're going to do, is we're going to do all this other stuff first and then square whatever we get. And this is saying the quantity is going to be squared. So the quantity of 3 less than the sum of 2 and 4. And we have 3 less than the sum So again, this is where you see the word less than, and you might want to read left to right and then right left to right, 3 minus. But if you're going to find 3 less than your age, you're actually going to take your age and subtract 3, not do 3 minus your age. So we need to do 3 less than is going to be minus 3. 3 less than the sum of 4 and 2. Well, 4 and 2, okay, I'm going to use those. But the sum means we're going to add those two together. So 4 and 2. 3 less than the sum of 4 and 2. Order of operations says that we're going to add these first anyway. So, but we are going to find the sum. So maybe if you wanted to put parentheses, that'd be fine. The sum of 4 and 2, and then you're going to find what's 3 less than that. But then overall, you're going to take all that quantity, and you're going to square it. And square means an exponent of 2. We talked about that in previous lessons and years. So we can say that this is the sum of 4 and 2, then we're going to find 3 less than it, and then we're going to square it. And it's just an expression. It's not a complete thought. We don't have an answer. You could probably find the answer, but you don't have to. They just want us to write an expression. So we're good to go here. The last example I have for you, it says write a word statement for, and then you have 6 on the outside of parentheses and 3 minus m. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of how we could do this. We know that if the number is right outside of parentheses or it's right next to a variable, if they don't write the operation, we know that we're multiplying. So this is 6 times 3 minus m. So we could say 6 times 3 minus a number, because that's a variable. So this is an algebraic expression. It's not just numerical, it's algebraic because we have a variable. 6 times 3 minus a number. Oh, but what would be wrong with that? That would tell us to do 6 times 3 first. So 6 times the quantity of 3 minus a number. Then we're going to find that 3 minus a number, and then we're going to multiply that quantity times 6. So that would be a good answer. Or we could also say 6 times the difference. And if we're saying 6 times the difference, it's telling us find the difference first, do that in parentheses, find the answer, and then multiply times 6. 6 times the difference of 3 and a number. So these are all good to go. Hopefully you've copied down these notes that I've put and these examples that I've included. So you're going to get full credit. And I'm going to leave you with some problems to do on your own as usual after I get this all organized for you. Okay, so this is what you really need to have. Hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions, maybe go back and check it again or just ask me during class. But here are the questions I'm going to leave you with. I need to do some erasing because you need to be able to see these. The first one says, write an expression or equation for the phrase 3 plus the product of 8 and 9 squared. So you're going to find, this is all right for now. 3 plus the product of 8 and 9 squared. So you need to know what product is. You need to know what that comma tells you to do. So write an expression or equation for that. And then the second one says, write an expression or equation for 4 more than the quotient of 9 and a number equals 42. So again, you don't have to solve these. You just have to write them out. 4 more than the quotient of 9 and a number equals 42. So figure out how to set that up to appropriately represent that word statement. And then the last one is, again, write a word statement for this. So it's a little more difficult, but you need to know this is 18 plus g, and then you can divide whatever that answer is. So make sure that you include that in your word statement. Divide by 3, and it's all going to equal 7. So I'm going to leave you with that. Best of luck. I know you guys will do great. Just take your time, and I will see you soon.